There is a trend, well, I cannot call it a trend anymore, that's been going on for years now. They call it neo-paganism. Some scholars call it a form of neoclassicism. They have all kinds of names they give to it. The phenomenon is that a lot of people want to join some pagan witch cult. And this is manifesting on social media, also in things like cosplaying or reenactments, where people for fun dress as a cartoon character or they reenact an historic event. Even there, you have those witch cults that arrived. Both male and females joined them. Even among churches, you have such cults. And they are going into mysticism. They even go towards worshipping Egyptian gods often. And now, a lot of folks are saying, what the heck's going on with those people? They're crazy. They're out of their mind. Now, I'm holding this phone against the wall so that I won't carry it all with me. That's why it's like this. Hold on. Now look. Why would anyone who lives in the 21st century, who has access to the internet, who has access to libraries, who probably can speak English and can contact almost anyone in the world through the net, through social media, why would anyone like that today, especially someone young, want to join a witch cult? I call them witch cults, okay? Others call them just cults. I call it witch cults because they practice it like white magic. There's no such thing as white magic, but okay, they practice good witchcraft just for themselves. They have no interest in harming others. And I can understand, they don't want to harm others, but the power you're operating in is evil. So even if you do good with it, you are remaining in evil. Why? Because it's an evil power, and the evil power is going to harm you when you use it. So even if you do good with it, you are still in harm. But okay, that's a whole nother subject. Okay. Look, why would anyone join such a group? I want to give a parable, and the way this parable, I hope I can explain it. We have a neighborhood. You have people living there, around 4,000 people. It's not really a small town, but it's a part of a city. And you have this boy that goes to school. Let's call him Kevin. Kevin is an 8-year-old boy. He's a happy child, never causes any trouble, and he has a loving home with loving parents and loving siblings. Then, one day, Kevin talks about a girl in class. That the girl is quite angry all the time, and that she has some blue spots on her skin. One of the siblings asks, "What did you say? Blue spots? How does blue spots look like?" Kevin described them. And then that sibling of Kevin said to his mother, "Mom, this is a case of child abuse over here. We need to report this." Then the mother and father said, "Don't you dare do it, son. What did I told you? Mind your own business. You hear me?" I mean, I'm just over it. I'm just enacting it now. But the parents, man, they lost it against their son because they were saying, "You should be an example to your siblings, man. You should be ashamed of yourself. That's their privacy, man." Oh, then. And the son was saying, "Mom, Dad, with all due respect, a child is endangered." And our Kevin, who's only 8 years old, can see that something is wrong. And he's talking about it. Then the mother said, "Well, other people are also speaking about it, so let them figure it out." So the son said, okay. The son stopped because they wanted to ground him and punish him also. Well, the only thing the son said was, "This needs to be addressed." And now, let me say, 15 years later, there is a homicide that occurred. A man was strangled, beaten by his girlfriend. Well, now ex-girlfriend, because the guy is dead. At this time, 15 years later, Now that Kevin is 23 years old, his older brother's in approaching 40s, and they're watching the news together. And when I see the news, when the police takes off the one that's been arrested, they think, what? Is that Sandy? Is that girl, Kevin, when you were around 8, 10 years old, you told us that you saw her angry all the time with bruises? Kevin said, yeah, that's her. So now they saw that she was she was mentally unstable, she lost it, and her boyfriend ended up dead. Later, the judge declared that she didn't intend to harm anyone, but she couldn't think clearly because she was so mentally damaged. So they put her in a mental institution, and she could leave once in a while to go home. They wanted to rehabilitate her as far as they could. Now look at this. That young woman lost it, and a man died. Someone has lost their son, or their brother, or a co-worker, or a friend. There's a loss there. They figured out that this Sandy often had anger issues, and she used to get into fights with men. How did Sandy turn this way? Well, remember, when Sandy was growing up, people noticed that things were wrong at home, but they kept quiet because you need to mind your own business, their privacy. Oh dear, what do you think you are, meddling with people's life? So people kept it quiet. The issue was not dealt with. That child repressed all that tension, and that tension harms the mental development of the child. So when she was a late teenager, she had all these anger issues that she didn't knew she had, and now there were demons were feeding off her, and those demons were using her to attack men to cause this contention. So this Sandy needs deliverance. She needs exorcism and deliverance. But hold on a minute. You mean to tell me that an 8-year-old boy can see that there's something wrong with a classmate of his? And he can see blue spots, which are bruises. Clearly, he was just a kid. He couldn't understand what it was, but he could see things were wrong. What about all those adults? The teachers at the school? No, they wanted to remain in their relief, to be left alone, so they agreed to deny what was going on. And now that it become worse, nobody wants to even admit that they used to know this Sandy. Because now that it came out that she was mentally disturbed, and they found out that it was due to extreme abuse during her childhood, people are going to ask, why didn't anyone notice anything? And now people don't want to admit that they were cowards, that they willed it to happen. They willed it to happen because they were in denial. So even though they may not agree with the abuse itself, they still willed it to happen because they agreed to remain in denial, to mind their own business. Now, what does this have to do with people wanting to join a witch cult? Because you need to understand the following. There are many people like that Sandy walking out there. They don't intend to harm others, but nevertheless, they are a risk factor because not only do they have wounds in their soul, demons are feeding off of them, and demons will use them against others. Now, there are people out there who don't know much about the spiritual, but they do realize there are people out there who are like walking time bombs. Anytime they can snap and things can happen. And so they want security. And when they join one of those witch cults, they get a charm. And the charm helps such people to remain at a distance, because the charm hinders the negative energy of people from reaching them. So when you have someone who's about to snap, they can't snap where they are because the paranormal shield around them is guarded by some small demon entities that keeps all the bad energies out. And other demons are cooperating with it. That's a charm. That's one reason why people join witch cults. But here's another thing. I didn't give the parable of Sandy for nothing. When you go into history, I'm not telling you to go way deep into history, but there was a time that it were shamans that run societies. Chiefs. Often the chief was the top shaman, the top witch doctor around, and he had paranormal powers. He had demons all around him, so he was the powerful man that kept the rest of the community in check. This is how it works. Let's say you had an ancient, let me say like this. You had an ancient Chinese village, for example. And there it became obvious that there was a child that had a bruise. So the adults began to ask the mother, how did Shen got the bruise? And the mother said, oh, it just fell. But then 2 weeks later, they see him with another bruise. Then they ask the mother again, how did he get the bruise? Where's your husband? So then the people in the community, they go to the chief. The chief is the head of several villages. And then the chief hears that there's a boy Chen with bruises. So the chief says, okay, I want you to get the father, get the husband. So the husband comes and the chief asks him, your son has bruises, what the heck is that? Then the father said, oh, he has bruises, and the chief told him, I don't want to see that kid with bruises again, because if the spirits would reveal to me that you have an interest in this, then you will have to deal with me and with some other entities. So, you get the idea? The father said, yeah, I got it. That man went back home and he never laid hands on the child again. Because you know why? 2 years earlier, there was a woman that was beating her children, and the children were charged. So the chief, together with some elders, they decreed a powerful spell. They summoned some unclean spirits and they sent them after that woman, and that woman became hysterical and she began to run around crazy, run around naked and attacking others, so the whole community was disturbed. And look at this, the elder said, look, we've done this, those children were harmed, you as community willed it to happen because you remain in denial. If you, people as community, permit darkness, we will give darkness to you. If you bring darkness to this community, you will face it with us. If you agree with ugliness, we're going to show you ugliness. So people knew, we're not going to do that. People knew they had to take a collective accountability. That's how it went in chiefdoms, practically. And it was common sense in ancient times that, well, when people will evil, when people will the negative, when they don't want to take a collective accountability, it needs to be dealt with. And it dealt with it through the paranormal. Now, as a believer, those who follow Christ, you're not supposed to be active in the paranormal. But we have something far better. We have the Holy Spirit. We walk in the anointing of Christ. That means that what the world does, judging by the aid of the paranormal, we can do far better than that. The world uses evil to repress evil, to get relief from evil, but it's only temporarily. As believers, we have the ability to overcome evil with good. So we're not using the same thing of the world to deal with something of the world. We have something far superior. But a lot of believers don't operate in it. Look, in the first century, with the first believers, righteous judgments took place. And people kept each other in check. If there was a so-called believer that kept holding on to darkness, the other believers were ordered and commanded not to associate with that believer until he repented. And sometimes even cast out some believers because they were endangering the community, the congregation. That's common sense, right? And now, let's say that there is a group of people that's attacking a fellow believer. What would happen? The believers together would go into prayer. They would go into the spiritual offensive for that believer. And things would happen. When the Apostle Peter was arrested and imprisoned, the Apostle James was killed with a sword publicly. He was executed on command of King Herod. When Peter was in jail, the believers came together and began to pray fervently. They began to pray. What happened? A holy angel from the heavens visited Peter and got Peter out of jail. Whoa. They didn't say, oh dear, Peter is in jail. Oh Lord, what's going to happen? Oh, he's about to die. Oh. No, they went onto the spiritual offensive. They operated in a righteous judgment. And Peter got out of that jail without scratches. Now, there are more examples I can give, but you can read the New Testament yourself. They knew how to operate in righteous judgment. Judgment doesn't only have to do with bad stuff. It can also be that someone come to the conclusion that someone deserves better. Let's say someone is appeasing others to be at peace. But then you tell someone, oh, man, you shouldn't operate in appeasement towards others. You should be you. Because you are blessed, you are anointed. That's also righteous judgment. For example, someone feels guilty about what they've done in 20, 30 years ago. But now, when you evaluate the situation, they shouldn't feel guilty at all because they didn't know any better how to respond. So now you exercise righteous judgment and now the individual is delivered from that bad way of thinking. That's also righteous judgment. But here's the thing. I don't see, at least I don't see, my eyes don't go throughout all the earth, so I don't see everything, but I seldom see believers speaking about righteous judgment, especially when it comes to protecting the weaker ones in the community. They say you need to pray, you need to pray, you need to forgive, you need to love. Hey, where's righteous judgment? About that fictive town in ancient China, there were, if that happened in that town, that a parent couldn't control himself, that parent, man, demons would visit him or her at night. Demons would act out their fantasies upon that individual, and that individual will know, okay. And the community will be bothered severely by what's going on, so the community knows, okay, we need to be accountable. They didn't think, well, they have our free will, they have our rights to will. No right to will. You're a community, you're accountable towards one another. Especially towards the weaker ones of your community. And you know what? That is what a lot of people are looking for. Is that comfort, that protection collectively. That's why they go to those witch cults. Because there, relatively speaking, they get it. I mean, let's give an example. Let's say you have a small cult of 9 people, just a small cult, but they're all into white magic. They're reading some books of the Middle Ages. Let's say one of those women involved has become the target of rage of others, of her boss and the people around her, and is harming, affecting her. What do you think the cult's going to do? They're going to do their little ceremony in a circle and doing all that weird singing, all of that. But what's going to happen? They are chanting consequences upon all the people that's harming that one witch. So the next day she's at the job, the boss is very kind towards her and nobody dares say a negative word against her. Why? Because trouble occurred over there. And those people at the job know that the troubles that occurred in their private lives is related to how they were treating that woman over there. So they know now that, okay, if you keep willing against this woman, we have to, well, our will can destroy us. No such thing as free will, the rights to think whatever you want. They will negative against someone, they are dealt with sternly. So they know if they continue, it's going to get worse. So that girl is part of that witch cult. She is now relieved. Now she's not safe because she's operating in the paranormal. Don't forget about that. And the people around her still have this negative will against her. There's still negative energy against her. But now she's under a charm that the negative energy is kept at a distance. Nevertheless, the situation is dealt with. Alright? and the people took action on her behalf. And look, there are churches where people go and they tell what's going on and say, I just have to pray, just praise the Lord, may the Lord will work through them, you need to love your enemies. No righteous judgment. Now look, as a believer, you're not as those pagans only out to smack people in order to get relief. You, as a believer, you go into prayer and you target a stronghold behind it. You target the demons in those dark clouds. You do that, and those people, man, they're going to sense a difference. You're also going to pray on their behalf, they're delivered. So you are operating in love towards them. But you can't operate in love with someone that keeps holding on to darkness. That's not possible. So now that that's going on, some people will be delivered, others will continue. And when people harden themselves and continue, you begin to decree the promises in Isaiah chapter 54, that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Actually, you should decree it all the time. But then you will realize that no gossip, no pistol, no gun, no knife formed against you or agreed against you will prosper. That's how believers operate. The pagans, they have their methods how to deal with stuff. We have far better, but we need to agree with it. Too often, those so-called witch cults are far more realistic than many of those churches. There are people fleeing churches and go to those witch cults. Why? Because at those churches, the believers, I'm not saying believers, I don't even know if those people are saved, but those church members, they're in denial. And denial is empowering the negative that's going on. They went to some witch cult, things happened, and that's how Satan traps people. Because there are times Satan will defend you and Satan will stand up for you. But when Satan does it, it's not out of good intention. It's to trap you. Satan and his demons will do good stuff in order for worse to follow it. I'm sorry this. For every good thing demons do or perform, there are 5 other bad stuff that will come forth out of that good thing they've done. So I'm not promoting witch cults over here. I'm just pointing out that, man, why aren't believers operating in righteous judgment? That is what we need, and that is what the world eventually needs. The world doesn't need people that go to church every Sunday or will claim to have the official name of the Messiah, or who are fighting evil with worldly understanding, which is empowering evil, by the way, or so-called believers that are in denial also, or who allow the negative will of the collective to continue. No. When you operate in the supernatural, you're going to get attacked. Why? Because you're operating in the supernatural. And people that agree with the darkness around you, man, they're coming after you. So it's not easy. But that's what the Most High called you to do. So you should do it. Well, that's it for now. I encourage you to operate in the supernatural because that's what you need. And listen, the righteous judgment isn't just about dealing with bad stuff. It has to do with speaking blessings. It has to do with decreeing good outcomes. For example, if there's a farmer and he's been working hard to sow his seed, you use righteous judgment in the supernatural to decree a supernatural harvest, a great harvest. And you will see when harvest time is there, man, the harvest is 4 times more than usual. The neighboring farm is going to think, what? What's going on over there? There's also righteous judgment. That you agree with Christ and that you operate in the anointing of the Holy Spirit. It's time to operate in righteous judgment. That being said, be at peace.